It is good to have your company here on Business Now. Well, the latest stats from the tax office show there are around 614,000 self-managed superannuation funds with around 1.15 million members and total assets around $913 billion. So that's just a little under a third of all money in superannuation. But there's a growing problem. There's an increasing number of people illegally dipping into their self-managed superannuation funds. Even more alarming, some set up these funds for the sole purpose of taking that money out illegally. The Tax Office Deputy Commissioner Emma Rosenzweig is on the case, and I spoke with her this week.
Ross, it is a concern for us that this money is leaving the super system and dwindling the retirement savings accounts of people before they're legally entitled to access it. So we know, though, that most SMSF trustees do the right thing. We are obviously focused as the regulator on those who don't, but it is a really important thing to make sure that the integrity of self-managed super funds is maintained, because they are a really important part of our retirement savings sector. There's nearly $1 trillion in retirement savings held in self-managed super funds now.
So do you get a sense when you've actually looked at some of these cases that it's opportunism to be able to try and get access to these funds, or is it desperation that they actually need the capital for a business or need the capital for cost of living problems that they might be experiencing?
Well, one of the things we do know is it's a real range of circumstances. So it can be all of those things that you mentioned. It can be because they have been recommended it by someone else, sometimes for a hefty fee. But it can be for a range of circumstances that people are doing this or going into this. We know that if people are in financial distress, that is or a higher risk that they will illegally access their super. But one of the things that we say is if you think you're a person who might be tempted to access your retirement savings, if you've got access directly to it, then perhaps a self-managed super fund is not the right mechanism for you.
All right, then you go to that point, as you mentioned there, that you've got individuals who are doing this, then you've got others who are promoting schemes, saying, come and see me, we've got a way in which we can get you access to your superannuation fund early. Now, you know, there are some legitimate ways that people may, in the most severe of circumstances, gain access to their super funds early, but that's the rarest exception. Mostly people cannot do it. So it's the promoters also that really you should be chasing, I would imagine.
Well, that's right, Ross. If someone is telling you that you can get access to your super early through an SMSF, I would be very wary of that advice, particularly if they're offering to do it for a hefty cut of the superannuation that you might take out. So we'd be very concerned about that, and we do work closely with ASIC and with the state and federal police forces to try to identify and crack down on those. I'd encourage anybody who is aware of that behaviour or who has had a promoter approach them to report that to the ATO, and you can do that by searching for tip-off form on our website. But in addition, we know that people who are in genuine distress, there are mechanisms in the law that they can legally apply to access their super early if they meet those conditions. And you do that through applying to the ATO. You can find compassionate release of super rules on our website as well, and you can look at whether or not you meet those conditions.
Okay, so there are some people who just take their money straight out of superannuation. Quite clearly, that is illegal unless you've got all of the right checks and balances ticked off. There are others who try and do it a little bit by stealth. Maybe there's a loan that goes to an associated company, or maybe it's a loan to a trust or something of that nature. But that also is equally as illegal as it is just taking the money straight out.
Well, that's right. Self-managed super funds are prohibited from loaning money to members or to relatives. And we saw in the work that we did that around $200 million a year of that sort of loans is occurring. Pleasingly, much of it was paid back, but it still amounts to a contravention that your auditor will report to the ATO if it's occurred. And I would just encourage a self-managed fund, if they aren't sure what they can or can't do with their retirement savings, that they really seek advice from a professional before they do anything.
All right, there's something that I noticed, and that is only the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of reports about the tax office doing a lot of work about illegal companies and Australian business numbers and people making massive GST claims when they put in BAS statements, quite often for the first time, and then they dissolve it and disappear. And there's thousands, tens of thousands of people who have broken the law by following schemes that were promoted on Instagram. It seems to me there's almost a parallel here with what people are doing with superannuation. Does the tax office see it that way as well?
We don't see promotion of schemes on the same scale as you're talking about with the GST one. We do see promoters operating to advise people that they can use self-managed super funds to take their superannuation out. And as I said, we really encourage people to report that behaviour, but it is not on the same scale, Ross.
Tax Office Deputy Commissioner Emma Rosenzweig, many thanks for your time on the program today.
Thanks for having me, Ross.